This book is Alexander and the Terrible, Horrible, No Good, Very Bad Day. It's written by Harold Littledale and illustrated by Tom Vroman. It was bedtime. Chris and his father sat side by side on the bed. Alexander was a pretty bad horse today, Chris said. His father lit his pipe. Alexander, the red horse with the green stripes? Chris nodded. What happened? Chris's father asked. He wouldn't eat his cereal, Chris said. He wouldn't sit down at the table. He spilled his milk all over. He made a terrible fuss. That's too bad, Chris's father said. When we went to the park, Alexander wouldn't play with the others. He got scared and ran and hid behind the slide. Mommy said she was surprised at the big grown-up horse acting like that. I'll bet you were too, Chris's father said. Well, sort of, said Chris. What else happened? Chris's father asked. Well, we went to the grocery store, and Alexander swished his tail and knocked over a jar of peaches by accident, but it broke. I guess that's pretty hard for a horse in the grocery store, Chris's father said. He better be more careful, Chris said, or we won't be able to take him shopping with us anymore. That wouldn't be much fun, his father said. Did Alexander take a nap? Chris's father asked. He says horses don't take naps. They just sit on their bed and play with their toys. Don't they get really tired? And cross too, Chris said. Alexander was cross all afternoon. Why? What did he do? Chris's father asked. Well, Chris said, he wouldn't tie his shoelaces. He jumped and jumped and jumped all over the living room couch, even when Mommy asked him not to. Uh-oh. He got angry and kicked my little fire engine and broke the wheel off of it. Oh, said Chris's father. And he splashed water all over in the bathroom when he had to take a bath? And he wouldn't brush his teeth. Or pick up his toys. Whew, that is a cross horse, Chris's father said. Chris moved closer. He leaned his head against his father's arm. Daddy, what are we going to do about Alexander? He's awfully bad sometimes. His father was looking at the toy fire engine and the wheel that had come off. What do you think we ought to do? Chris thought for a moment. Well, he said, Mommy could put a jail under the dining room table, and I could put him there when he was terrible. Chris's father shook his head. Mommy wouldn't ever do that, he said. Maybe we could tie him up in the bed and not let him get out for one whole day. Chris's father shook his head. No, sir, he said. Not me. Maybe you could tell him to go away and never come back. As long as he lives. Chris said doubtfully. I'd miss him, said Chris's father. Chris put his elbows on his knee and rested his chin in his hands. Then what are we going to do about that old Alexander, he said. His father stood up. I'm going to think about that while I fix this fire engine. Chris's father went out to the kitchen and took the hammer from the shelf over the broom closet and a nail from a coffee can under the sink. He set the toy engine down on the kitchen chair and held the wheel in place and hammered the engine with the wheel and the wheel back together again. He spun the wheel around a few times to see that it worked perfectly. Then he put the hammer back on the shelf in the broom closet and went back to Chris. Did you think about Alexander? Chris asked, trying out the little fire engine on his bed. I thought and thought, said his father. What did you decide? Said Chris. His father put the fire engine on Chris's toy box for the night. I decided he just had a bad day. He helped Chris wiggle down in the bed and handed him his big brown bear. And I think anybody can have a bad day once in a while, even a red horse with green stripes. He tucked the covers in and kissed Chris on the nose. You wait, he said. Alexander will be a wonderful little horse tomorrow. He turned out the bedroom light. And you'll be a wonderful little boy, too. Chris giggled. How did you know I wasn't very nice today? He asked. His father turned out the light in the hall. Alexander told me. That's the end.